Good morning, David. Am I muted? Yeah, no, I'm not muted. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good.
Back from your travels?
No, I'm in Florida.
How's your mom?
She's doing very well, actually. I hope she'll get out of her facility in about 3 weeks.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and she walked with a walker 250 steps yesterday.
Wow. What is this? Go ahead. Yeah.
Good.
All right. I think we're focused. And just to reiterate, you mentioned this, I guess, Linda, is that this is a dialogue amongst a selected group, and others are maybe observing. And I don't know how many more people are going to show, but Linda, I'm going to pass it over to you for a brief introduction, and then on to Robert and Helen for the presentation.
Yeah, well, welcome everyone. Thank you, John. Great overview. And the way we really learn to dialogue is the practice. You can't do it just by looking at the rules. You have to really practice. So that's one reason we thought we would start to introduce a practice session. The first one will be on the 6th. We'll say more about that at the end. So I think I recognize just about everyone here. The only new person I just would like to introduce, and maybe I'll have him introduce himself, is Philip Nice from Oregon. If you could just say a few words about yourself, Philip. He's joined the Climate Dialogue Group team meeting.
Hello, I'm Philip Kneis, teach political science at Oregon State University. Very much working at the intersections of culture, politics, and society. Have been doing a lot of international teaching with Alison Davis-Weidice, will probably join us a little later. And I'm also trained dialogue facilitator, and I was told this is a nice group, and I'm looking forward to participating.
Wonderful. Nice to have you, Philip. Is there anyone else that has not been introduced who's here that we haven't had join us before? I think we've all been on before, which is great. And so I think people will slowly come in, but it's a nice sized group. We can almost all be in the dialogue. So what we're going to do is Robert and Helen are going to make a presentation for about 20 minutes on Uganda, aspects of Uganda and climate. And then we will move into a opening round where we'll each get about a minute to just get our voice in the container and say what we observed, what we wanted to reflect on in what was said during the presentation. And then John will be moderating us in an open conversation. It won't be completely dialogue yet, because dialogue we share in the facilitation. We're not quite there yet, but we'll be raising our hands, and John will call on us. And we'll have about 3 minutes. I'm going to use my little handy chime here so that we don't go too crazy and overspeak. It'll sound like this. So when you hear that, it just says, okay, finish up, because we want everybody to have lots of time to say what they want to say. I just see that we have a few more people joining us. Hi, David. We're putting our names and where we're from on our little windows, so that makes it easy to identify each other. So we'll go for about an hour and 20 minutes or so of free conversation, and then we'll have a closing round, another minute where we can just kind of wrap up what we heard, what we learned from each other, and we'll make some announcements at the end. So I think without further ado, I'd like to introduce Robert, I don't see, there's Robert. Okay, Robert, you and Helen are on.
And Helen, you might just put yourself back on screen view on your
Yes.
video.
There you are.
See your beautiful face. Yep.
I don't know if you want to share your screen, Robert, or how you.
Robert, yes, you have screen
Can
share
share the screen?
permission from the host, who's me. So feel free to do screen share, and there we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert from Uganda Rep Hats. Let me hope you all seeing the screen.
Yes,
Yes.
very good.
Yeah, our topic of discussion is climate and women, using Uganda as our case study. So, should we start?
Indeed.
Yes, go
All
ahead.
right.
Just to say, let's all keep ourselves on mute unless we are speaking, so we get better sound quality. And we're not going to take any formal breaks. I just wanted to mention that. So if you do need a break, just go ahead and put yourself on mute and maybe turn your camera off. You're back.
And
Okay.
Robert, I might just suggest that you go to full screen view, and then you can take all the peripheral, and just down in the lower right, you'll see something that looks like a kind of a stand that will go to full screen view, and then down in the orange section. Down at the bottom. To click on that. In any event, well, you can just go ahead. This is
Robert, please press F5 if it is there on your keyboard.
Hello,
Yes.
Yes,
Coming
Robert.
in. Go ahead.
are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
we can see your screen. I was just
So we proceed with the presentation.
Yes.
yes, right.
Okay, this is climate and women. That is our topic of discussion. The case study of Uganda. I and Helen are from Repats Foundation, an NGO situated in Eastern Uganda. Basically, Repats Foundation centers its focus on responding to violence against women and children and fighting against human rights violations. And part of what we do basically include offering legal, medical, protection, psychosocial, and socioeconomic empowerment services to women and girls. I and Helen have been in Repats for quite a time, and members on board, you should understand that Helen is the founder of Repats Foundation, the organization. I request Helen to say something before we proceed with the presentation.
Thank you so much, Robert, for preparing this and organizing this meeting. Hello, everyone. I am called Hellen, Executive Director and the founder of Repats Foundation. And I hold a bachelor's degree in environmental science, a diploma in law, master's in human rights, and many other qualifications. I am so humbled to be part of this group because honestly, climate issues are really becoming a very big challenge that need to be addressed as soon as possible. Otherwise, a lot of humans and other creations are going to perish. Thank you so much for today.
All right, thank you, Helen. So we proceed. I must put it notice that I'll share this document after this presentation. So if you want more information about Repats, about what we are going to present, I will email this document to you people. So Uganda is a landlocked country, what you should know about it, and it is located in Eastern Uganda, Eastern part of Africa, sorry. And our climate is basically equatorial. And what we should know that according to the NDGPA, it is the 13th most vulnerable country and the 106th most ready country. This means Uganda is on a time bomb of having terrible impacts of climate change. Already we are experiencing a lot, as you'll be seeing in the presentation. And this introduction about Uganda, it is quite detailed. I will request members that I will share this information so that you go through it and you understand how Uganda is, the temperatures, how they are, and how it has changed over time, because I've put it in this brief background. Members on board, basically, how do we understand climate change? Climate change is usually attributed to human activity. It changes the composition of global atmosphere, and naturally, even the climates change. Our seasons change, rainfall change, the intensity of temperatures changes, and even the sun intensity here in Africa is changing. And as we can see, some of the products of climate change include prolonged droughts, floods that we are having in Uganda, in Mbale, Teso, and Kasese districts. It leads to increased water levels, rising temperatures, landslides, and mudslides also, increased variability in rainfall seasons. Uganda is having now food shortages due to that, and rainstorms. Some of the effects include increased poverty, food shortages, water shortages, and contamination of water. What we should understand, contamination of water is basically due to a lot of floods that pollute these water sources. There is famine in places like Karamoja and Eastern Uganda. There are also some disease outbreaks, as you will see in the presentation. There is even increased migration as people relocate to places that they feel that are safer, and even increased death. So that is for you about climate change. I put some pictorial stories here. You've seen these are some of the latest images about Uganda and floods. Some of these parts are in Kampala, like the first picture. There was recently the drainage system in Kampala is not okay. And those who have been in Uganda should know that parts of Kampala, a lot of them were constructed in swampy areas. So the drainage systems were destroyed that are natural, and it has even affected the ecosystem in the country. And then the lower picture is part of the floods that happened in Kasese a few years ago, that even rolled stones from mountains and destroyed a healthy center. That is on your right below. And even some of these pictures are the latest of floods in Kasese and parts of Eastern Uganda. This is how terrible the situation is. And these pictures, 3 of these pictures are for this year, as you'll be seeing. There is this one, also this is part of Mbale. The picture above here, family of 7 people died as they were traveling to Eastern Uganda after one of the river banks burst its banks and water flooded. Yeah, so some of these pictures show what is happening. Then on your right below, there is a picture part of Karamoja. People are dying of serious famine and starvation. That is the contraction that is in Uganda. Parts are flooding, others are in extreme drought. Some parts are having terrible floods, some parts are having terrible temperatures and extreme destruction of property. So those are some of the products of climate change. This shows us why we need to respond to this urgently. And it is not only in Uganda that is happening. All of us who have been following up these events, we should understand that even Pakistan, almost a third of it had terrible coverage of floods. Back to our topic, women and climate or environment. What you should understand about us here in Africa, we have what they call socially constructed roles of different genders. Here locally, women are usually the most people who are responsible for producing food. And you should know that 70% of women are employed in the agriculture sector. Then we should also know that here in homes, women are responsible for collecting water. Women are also responsible for collecting energy sources, such as firewood and charcoal for domestic use. But unfortunately, although women are instrumental in using these resources, they own less than 10% of these natural resources because of the cultural norms around that women don't inherit what, because of different unfair systems on ground. So this is what you should know about women and why the impact on climate really affects them more than it can affect us, the men here in Africa. The first element or the first point we have is escalated poverty levels. We should understand that, as I've told you, that 70% of women are employed in agricultural sector. The current climate changes and its effects has affected a lot of agricultural output, which feeds most of women. And most of these women that are employed there, they are basically underpaid and usually paid after harvests. So if you work with your man and they can't pay you there and then, they tell you, okay, until we harvest, that's when you can get something. So the current floods and the droughts that are happening have affected terribly their earnings. And we should know that when a woman is poor, she's very vulnerable to violence, especially sexual and gender-based violence. And that's why we say that a poor woman is just a breath away from violence. Why? Because their vulnerability to sexual exploitation is high. And you should note that there is a term that we use to say that food for sex. Many areas that are facing starvation, they are doing that. Women sell themselves because they want food. Secondly, poverty limits women's safety and security. You can't have a good shelter when you are poor. You can't construct it. Most of these women are in terrible housing. Then thirdly, this poverty due to these floods and what that has escalated the terrible state of women increases things like sexual gender-based violence, as we'll be seeing, and human trafficking. Limited education. These floods in Mbale, research has it that whenever there are floods in eastern Uganda, people who are affected most are girls. They take a longer time to return to school than the boys, because young girls and women are assigned the role of taking care of the welfare of families. So this poverty levels due to climate change has affected their incomes and it has put them down into poverty. Then what we should also understand, our second point is that women and climate change affects gender-based violence. How? When there is climate change, there is already a shortage of water. And when there is just shortage of water, women have to travel longer distances to access safe and clean water. So some of these common things expose women to rape and defilement. Where I and Hellen work in Kamuli district, we have had several cases of defilement. And this year alone, we had 38 cases of rape associated to water access. Women were traveling as far as 5 kilometers to 7 kilometers to access safe and clean water. And these 38 cases were associated on their way to these water points and on their return. Usually they tend to come back late. In the morning, they dig up to around 4, they have to go and get water. On their way back, these perpetrators pounce on them. There is also sexual exploitation. Due to these climate changes, floods and drought, there tends to come some people who offer help and assistance. But unfortunately, some of these people who offer this hope, these people in authority, they tend to put conditions to women so that they can receive this support. There was a case in eastern Uganda whereby some 2 girls were defiled. It is not here, but they were defiled by an associate of a certain organization that was trying to offer some support. But the term was, if you want support, give me what I want, and I give you what you need. This is because of climate change. How? The floods destroyed the livelihoods of these children and they had to survive. They needed food, they needed clothing, and it gave a perpetrator an opportunity. Then we should also know that under sexual gender-based violence, there is also what they call child prostitution and early marriages. Considering that climate change has increased poverty levels, it has destroyed food. Uganda food is expensive. Actually, this year alone, food prices have increased by 40%, and some families can barely feed. So some people and some families are reaching an extent of sending their girls into prostitution so that they can access food. These are some of the things we could consider and limit in case we respond to climate change. Climate change also has contributed to domestic violence. Women travel a longer time to longer places to access water. We tend to have small streams in our localities where women could get this water. But due to climate change, these streams are no more, they are dry. So they have to move a longer distance. And on their way back, women are beaten by their husbands, claiming they are taking longer time doing this work or they are cheating on them. So one case story we have under this, we have a 13-year-old survivor that was forcefully married to a witch doctor for 2 years, because the witch doctor had promised food to a family. It is a cerebral state and Hellen knows it. Actually, recently we were on court, was it on Monday? Yeah, we went to court for this particular case. So she was infected with HIV and other STDs. Why? Due to limited access to food. Her family basically relies on agriculture. And due to this horrible state, they couldn't afford food. So they sold her off into a marriage. So that is how terrible climate change is affecting women, especially around sexual and gender-based violence. We should also know, besides that, climate change leads to famine and starvation. There have been over 100 deaths in northern Uganda related to this. In the Karamoja area, it is a mineral-rich area, but unfortunately, it is having rampant drought, a prolonged drought, and people have died in relation to starvation. So we have another case here about food also, whereby we engaged with one of the survivors of violence, and she told us she had to sell herself because she wanted to support her siblings. Their family abandoned them because of food. The father and mother left, they could not afford to support this big family. They abandoned the family. So famine is doing really terrible to our livelihoods and the livelihoods of women and children. So I'll show you some pictures around this. These are recent pictures of Uganda. In the photo above, that lady died later after that photo was taken. And on your left, that child was saved. She was being tied by the community because she was stealing food and food was scarce. This is the terrible state, how terrible this situation is. The photo below shows how these children are being malnourished due to the climate change impacts in Uganda. And this shows you the clear picture of how terrible drought has eaten up our country. People are barely born. Children can no longer survive. If you look at those pictures, I'll share the documents. It is a terrible state. And we colleagues, as we are on this platform, we should endeavor to spread the message about climate change because it is horrible. Now this young child is tortured, is imprisoned because of stealing food. She had taken days without eating, this young boy up. So that's some of the state that we are going through. Climate change on women, still, it limits the access to safe and clean water. And remember, floods pollute water. Like the floods in Mbale, they bring all the waste into the clean water sources. And you cannot have the same quality of water with these floods. And we should know that, as I've told you, women move longer distances, which also affects their safety due to that. And of course, they experience domestic abuse. There is even a case of a 23-year-old girl who was gang raped in front of her 3-year-old son, and she lost a pregnancy due to result of gang rape. She was walking 6 kilometers to access water in some part of Eastern Uganda, Kamuli district, where we work. We tried to save her. I remember Hellen and I coordinated, we took her to hospital, but unfortunately, it was late. So she left behind a 3-year-old son, due to access of safe and clean water. If we work on this climate change, members, we can change this situation because Uganda has a lot of streams and potential water sources that have safe and clean water, but we can't access them because they are dry now due to climate change. What we should know, climate change also promotes displacement and migration. Women tend to relocate, men tend to run away from their homes, which exposes women to insecurity. If you are relocating from your locality to move to another one, people pounce on you. Women are vulnerable members, what you should know. Girls are vulnerable more than boys. Women are more vulnerable than men. So due to climate change and its disasters, it has forced women to get displaced and homes to be destroyed, which forces them to migrate. And we should also know that climate change threatens women's health and the girls' health. Research has it that during floods and there is usually a high spread of vector-borne diseases such as malaria, such as fever, Zika virus. And it also, these climate change effects affect the maternal and the health of and child health of these people in these situations. It increases heat levels and increase the incidence of stillbirth. Actually, recent research that I read in Far East, where these floods are taking place, they pointed out in the newspaper that that area has the biggest number of women who are dying during the process of giving birth. This could be related to this situation. If that is what the newspaper, the journalists found out, it could be related to what they are going through. So members, we should work hand in hand to change the situation. It's terrible for women in here. Then what we should also know that climate change increases rural to urban migration of men. In Uganda, it is easy to travel as a man because our safety is at least better than that of women. Here in Uganda, men are fond of running and deserting their homes in times of situation. Many women have lost their husbands, men have abandoned their homes in the Far East where there are floods, in the drought areas. In northern Uganda, most of men have gone to urban areas. Why? They can easily get a source of income. Women can't. Women can't because even the dynamics of employment favor men more than women. The men have more ability to travel than women. So most homes have been abandoned. It has led to separation of homes, leaving these women with no hope of survival, making them vulnerable to sexual exploitation. So that is one of the common effects of floods. Then we should also know that this climate change promotes gender inequality and equity. What we should know in Uganda here, most of our disaster preparedness programs are headed by men. And there is a lot of corruption and bureaucracy. Women barely have this money. So even when they are attending to communities, they tend to favor men more than women, which makes women more vulnerable to other things. When they are allocating homes, relocating people, it is men who get these homes. And at the end of the day, they displace their own families at the expense of their own comfort. So we should understand that climate change has a lot of terrible effects and impacts on women. And then the last point we have under that relationship is death and injuries. It is obvious. Death is inevitable. And we should know that even when you are attending to these people, even in hospitals, in Uganda, even government hospitals prioritize money. Women in Uganda barely have this money, especially in rural areas. So even if they want to get medical assistance, you should understand that the circumstances don't permit them. They always ask for money. Unless she has money, she can survive these effects. So members, I will continue from there. I will pass on the mic to my colleague, Hellen. I know I've been quite fast, but time is not on our side. We shall share this information, this PowerPoint, and you get to know about Uganda. Thank you. You're welcome, Hellen.
Thank you so much, Robert. Help me. I'm going to use your screen because it is more easier. Yes. Thank you so much, Robert. That was so elaborative. And thank you so much once again for organizing this PowerPoint. It's quite clear. As for me, I'm going to discuss how to work with women to address and respond to climate changes. First and foremost, we should know that women possess unique knowledge and expertise, particularly at the local level. So their inclusion in decision-making towards the fight against climate change is such crucial. So why? Because 80% of any 80% of women are normally affected by climate change. Let's say floods, let's say famine. It's always because you look at women as the food providers at home, especially here in Africa. It's a must, whether the man has left food or not, you have to get food. Whether you don't have money or not, your children have to feed. Actually, just a few kilometers away from here at our offices at Repats, we have some place called Chikaramoja, whereby people migrated from Karamoja due to excessive poverty and famine. And one of the interviews that we made, we asked a woman how they are surviving, and she told us she has to make sure by 1 o'clock, she sends her children to the mosque to have lunch. As for her, she prays to God to provide. So it is a must, her children have to eat. This makes us to make sure that women are inclusive into fighting climate change. That means that women are great leaders in fighting climate change. So one of our points is inclusion of women at all levels to participate in climate change. That means we have to go far to ensure that whatever program we have on fighting climate change all over the world, let women be put also on the forefront. But you find that it's only 0.23 women-funded projects that are advocating for climate change. Another point is socio-economic empowerment of women. You find that most of these women that are in the village, what they were taught how to farm, it is what they know. They do not have skills. When you find programs of Abalima, for example, in quotes, Abalima, the best Abalimas in Uganda, the best farmers, most of them are men. So where are the women? Women are being left at the back. And yet, in the end of the day, children want money from us, children want food from us, men are running away. We need to empower women. So it is, for me and Robert, we thought that socio-economic empowerment of women is number 2 key to ensure that women are able to advocate for climate. They are able to defend the climate. When it is raining, if it is flooding, if they're carrying out agriculture on hills, can we teach them better methods of farming that can stop their crops from flooding? One of our clients, actually, one of our survivors, we had taught her better methods of farming and all that. She tried her best. Unfortunately, with the heavy rains that are taking place, all her garden, actually, we shall add in more pictures, and you see what is on the ground. Most of her banana plantation was slashed down with heavy rainfall. The beans that she has planted, now she's really worried. She got her high, she was attacked by high blood pressure and all that. Then also promoting gender equality and equity in distribution of resources and access. As I've just said, most of the funded projects of climate change are more male dominated. And yet the first movements who were advocating for environment were women. So what if we collectively involve women? Repart itself is an organization that is working as well to advocate for climate. Daughters of the Earth, different organizations, yeah? If we come together and we empower this, because we know when women stand, they are the number one, I would say they are powerful organizers. Once a woman is given an opportunity, she can't let it go because she knows this is her mother earth. If you've given her resources, she's willing to protect the environment beyond. Because look at it, we are the mothers. It is our responsibility to feed the child. And this is evident. My mother struggled throughout my childhood to see that we are empowered. So gender equity and equality is really a big issue and crucial in advocating for climatic change. Introducing community disaster preparedness initiatives in most risk places. Actually, this one, as Repart Foundation has done that. And then I have another organization of some friends of mine in Ibale. They've gone into places telling people, putting out cars, these mobile ambulances to ensure that if there is flood, these women are transported into safer places, or children, or any person who is vulnerable. They've gone forward to make canoes that are simply, in case there is flooding, they can, because we saw how people were just perishing in the recent floods. Then introducing environmental climate education system. People don't know when it's going to rain, when it's heavy. It's just predictions, and they are in the most knowledgeable people. It is very hard in poor countries like Uganda, people to know the weather forecasts. But in case people alerted earlier that next month or next week we might experience heavy rainfall, there is warning us. They want people, people who are lessly educated, they want them about environment. You know, you should move off the mountains. They don't know why people are scared of losing their land. So they are like, why are they telling us? They don't go far to explain to them. They don't give them the weather forecast. But if they were prepared mentally that in this month of July, it's going to pour cats and dogs, kindly move off the mountain, kindly extend away from the river, visit a friend, visit a family during this period of time. Things just happen, and even the government itself gets shocked. So lastly, on how to work with women, we look at environmental stroke climate related projects. Can we empower these projects that are women inclusive and ensure that women have a chance to know more about the environment? Women, we extend all these projects far. Can we not look at the Globe North, women in the Global North? Let's go further in the South. Yes, there are women who are there, but few of them are grassroots-based organizations, very few of them. And if they are there, they're not being funded. The thing is that there is some kind of technical know-how that makes things so hard. Someone in the village is trying her best, and she's going to the government, kindly support me here and there, running to this organization. The question is, who knows you? And women and such projects are never funded. And the woman struggles on a local basis on how to make sure they can survive with the community. Robert, help me go down. We're about, okay. So what is Rep Hearts Foundation doing around with climate change? I want to say that me and Robert and my team and the board members, we celebrate ourselves as people who have worked tirelessly and selflessly to ensure that we advocate for a safe environment. As so far, we have over 43,600 trees planted, and this inclusive of indigenous local Ugandan trees, because we believe that a safe environment is one that is fresh and clean. And our target is to reach 10,000. So far, we have 6,000 indigenous trees that we've planted. We've gone far by promoting use of renewable sources in our demo villages called Buche River. In Buche River, you find that people have tapped water that was funded by solar electric fund. We have street lights for women to walk safely without fear. We've given over 1,018 solar lights that women can use. We have also gone far to give them refrigerated solar refrigerators, and also with the help of our friends for the world, we've been able to teach people how to make rocket stoves, to use of biosand filters, and women are drinking safe water. And this thanks to Papa and Mama Cat. Papa is David Albert, we call him Papa, and Mama Cat, because these people have parented us from far away. Sorry, they have really mentored us from the very beginning, almost from the very beginning. So far we've made 351 stoves, and we've given over approximately 150 biosand filters. Agroforestry projects, we do conduct trainings to different communities on how to plant trees, and also intercropping with forests as they're growing. You can put in other crops. And then also we talk about in those trainings also what we do, we conduct, we teach them how to use eco-friendly methods of farming, that they do not destroy environment. On top of that, if we go for a training, Rep Hearts carries trees, so that everywhere we go, we leave plants, we leave trees that are planted. We bring a foundation. We do not only teach, but we also implement. We take every training that we have, even if it's school, we take 10 trees with us. Then also we've embarked on fruit tree projects, whereby we take avocados, we take oranges, mangoes into different communities that we go, as we are conducting to train about better eating methods, balanced diet, and also as well as promoting environment. And also, I myself being an environmental student, we've been able, me and my team, to train about waste management. To me, if I see someone throwing a plastic, man, that makes me so crazy. I speak about it, and continuously I do advocate, and Robert and the entire team of Rep Hearts Foundation, we teach people of how to proper disposal should be, when to use a plastic and when not to use a plastic. And when we collect, even here at Rep Hearts, wherever you move and you find a plastic, we come and put it in a safer place, so that people who use them for recycling come and pick them. So thank you so much. That is what I had to say. Once again, Robert, thank you so much. I hope I was clear.
Thank you, Helen. Members, due to time issues, we didn't include other pictures, but we shall add some pictures of what Rep Hearts is doing, the actual pictures of some of these achievements we are doing, so that you can have a glimpse on what we've put on ground, especially the solar lights, the tapped water through our projects with SELF, and even the distribution of biosand water filters that I forgot to include here. And special thanks to David Albert and his team of Friendly Water for the World. They have been really supportive in some of these safe and clean water initiatives, and also in guiding us. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Robert.
Wow.
Wonderful. And Helen.
Robert and Helen, and you can probably maybe want to stop your screen share. Robert and Helen, thank you so much. And Robert, can you stop your screen share? Let's see.
How can I stop it? I don't know.
Should be something at the top. Let me just see if I can do it here. Let's see. How do we stop somebody else's? There we go. There we go. Good. Robert and Helen, I'm overwhelmed. If we were all in a group, I would initiate a standing ovation. That was an absolutely stunning presentation. So deep, so rich.
Apparently I started an hour ago. I just get on the wrong agenda.
So articulate.
Again? Last time I told Sarah, no, this time I started told Sarah.
All right, hang on.
Let me put
Need to mute.
yeah. Let's try to put ourselves on
They
mute.
want to mute themselves until we call on you. In any event, what we're going to do at this point is have a quick round of reflections, just initial responses and reactions to your presentation from those who have been the key invitees, and I think that's pretty much everyone on the screen at this point. But to give your name, where you're from, what location in the world, and what one response to what you've heard, which has been so incredibly rich. We could talk for hours on this, but what is the one thing that's kind of stood out that has galvanized your thoughts? And we're only going to give you 60 seconds. And Linda is got a gong with a big hammer that she will ring when we get close to 60 seconds, just to make sure that we give everybody a chance to have a comment, to begin with. And so I'll just initiate it and say I was just so struck by the depth of your capturing of and helping us understand what's going on, not only within the climate issues, but within how that's affecting women who make a significant majority of the population and have such huge responsibility. There's a paternal culture, needless to say, but climate change has exacerbated that, and it's just stunning to see what you're living with and what Rape Hurts is doing, Hellen, that you have headed up. So I'm just captured by all of that. I'm hoping that we can get your slides also to send out to everyone. In any event, under 60 seconds. So let me pass it on to David Blake Willis, one of our team members. And David, 60 seconds over to you.
Thank you so much, Helen and Robert and John, Linda, everyone. It strikes me that one of the needs we have today as humanity is to understand things better collaboratively. I'm speaking to you from Basel, Switzerland. The Swiss, there are only 7 million people in Switzerland, but the history of Switzerland we've become very aware of. It's all about collaboration and cooperation. And that's how they have been able to establish themselves as the country they are. And how can we do this is a question that I have, particularly getting away from violence.
Indeed, I'm going to ask you to either use the hand raise function or just to wave at me and I will call on you. But want everybody to speak once before anybody speaks twice. So who's next? Nancy. You're muted, Nancy.
I'm deeply grateful, Robert and Helen. Not only is it clear, it was so well organized, you made it so clear the larger context, particularly women, their situation, and then clarity about what the solutions are, the sorts of things that you are actually doing to deal with these things. And I'm working with university students and other young climate activists and looking to pair up or create direct connections between your people and the people here, and to know that there are things that they can do and be inspired to be of help, working with Friendly Waters and with Rape Hurts Foundation is really a gift. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you, Nancy. And truly, truly has been a gift. I want to hear from everyone. Anna Factor. You're on mute, Anna.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Mahenda, can you, you are in screen sharing. Can you stop your screen share? Mahenda.
Shall I just speak?
How do I that?
Go ahead, Anna.
Yes.
Right. Go ahead.
I was very good presentations, and I was particularly struck by the vulnerability of women and children, and glad to see that there are some men supporting them. It seems to me that the women have because they're always walking and feeding their families and fetching water, they have a very good understanding of the land, of nature. And which is great, but it makes them vulnerable, because one thing I was wondering is there any support for birth control in these communities so that there are less children, because the children are so vulnerable and the mothers? Is there a way they have a better chance if there are less of them? And it seems to me it's a worldwide problem, having children without having the means to take care of them. And climate change makes it worse because everybody's trying to adapt and survive.
Thank you, Anna. And I'll just say that this first round, we're not going to have answers to questions. People may raise questions, but interested mainly in your response and what stood out for you from this amazing presentation. Others just give me a wave or give me a raised hand. Or I'm going to start calling on people. David Albert, what you know what's going on there? You're familiar. What is it that?
Well, I am proud and humbled to call Hellen and Robert part of my family. I've been working with them for many years now. And these are two very, very courageous and creative people. And the world needs to multiply you. Even every time I hear a presentation like this, I think about simply the accident of my birth. That I could have been born there and dealt and had to deal with these similar problems. And it's only by an accident that I happen to have been born in New York City. Thinking about, of course, you are all my family, and my family is spread across sub-Saharan Africa and India and Sacramento and all kinds of other places. But imagining that I had just been born elsewhere and having to deal with this. Anyway, thank you for being who you are.
Thank you, David. Philip, you see your hand raised.
Yes, I would just like to say thank you to both of you. I've been able through during COVID to expand some of my classes to also many students from Africa, and you both have shown again that within the collective West, it's oftentimes underestimated how much agency people within Africa have for their own societies. And there's always this narrative that we need to help. No, we need to be able to actually let you speak, listen to you, because you know your societies much better than us. And we can also learn from you just as much. And so the energy, the dedication, and the entrepreneurship that you both have shown is so inspiring, because you actually understand that you have to do something rather than to just like or unlike someone on Twitter. It's oftentimes now happens in the West. So thank you very much. This was really great. And it shows that any amelioration of climate change, if it's supposed to be sustainable, has to come from within the communities themselves. And anything else would just be a repeat of old colonialist ways of thinking. So thank you also for making this possible.
Wow, such a powerful point, Philip. Thank you. Raul, I'm interested in your response. You made a nice comment in the chat, but from across the globe. And I know you partnered with Robert, so your thoughts.
So first of all, I would like to thank Hellen and Robert for the wonderful presentation. So while listening to all the consequences out there, I can completely relate with my context, because the issues are same, the consequences might be the different. So the ladies and the children's, those who are in that pictures, it's horrible. It's really touched everyone's heart here. So, and the best part of our dialogue is to see the questions arising in my mind, like how the government is functioning there. What are the initiatives or campaigns running out through the communities, as like Rayford's Foundation working tremendously. So here is also working out same, but the real core issues are not spoken and not by those who are affected most of by the climate change. So I humbled and in a deep sorrow to listen all these consequences, and looking forward to listen and collaborate more on this, because I found similarities in between Robert and my presentation and or the issues, because people those who are affected by climate change are the marginalized. I'm damn sure are not those who are sitting in the corporate houses or in the government. So yeah, that's my take on this, and definitely we'll discuss further more on that. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Rahul. Yes, indeed. Linda.
So I've always heard that education for women is one of the fastest routes to climate change resolution. And I'm kind of curious if in Uganda, the government is helping put resources into the educational domain, or if there's some way, that's happening. Maybe all over Africa, I don't know, but I'm just kind of curious for those of you from that area, if education of women in particular can be of help.
Thank you, Linda. Indeed, and I know in Kenya, I'm gonna call on William. It's like from Kenya, but it's the theme in Kenya where boys have the greater opportunity for education, and women or girls are married out early marriages. William, your thoughts from Kenya on what you've heard from Robert and Hellen.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Robert and Hellen. We really appreciate your presentation. I can see most of the presentation about the climate change and how it is affecting the people of Uganda, and they are most of them are similar to what we are facing in climate change, and most of the presentation we have a lot of common things with people of Uganda. And thank you so much. I appreciate your presentation. So I don't have much to say. I would like to say thank you so much for all of you.
Great to have you, William, and looking forward to presentations from Kenya. Herman, are you there? Herman is in the Congo and adjacent to Uganda. Herman, your thoughts on what you've heard in this presentation. What stood out for you? You're muted here, Herman. You're muted.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me, Zan?
You're good.
Okay, thank you so much. Congratulations for Hellen and Robert for all what they have been doing in Uganda. You know, we are neighbors, Uganda and DRC. As our friend from Kenya had been saying, we have common changes, we have common difficulties, and the most of the things we have in DRC is that after all this, we have also ongoing war, and this is really affecting the climate changes here. If you can think about what is happening on the protected areas, it is really dangerous. So I think next time we will hear from our presentation on the DRC and all about climate change. So my question is, what now? We had been talking, we had been on a dialogue for many times, and what actions are we taking to support what Hellen is doing, to support what people are doing in Uganda, in Kenya? And this is very important to take action to make sure we are having the same collaboration, same understanding to start taking action, supporting organizations like Hellen's organization and others to start somewhere else. Thank you so much. And thank you once more to you, Hellen, and to everyone. Asante sana.
Herman, thank you. And we look forward to to hearing from Congo in coming presentations. Mahenda, are you there? We can't see you, but from
I'm around.
From Tanzania, can you put your video on? There you
Yes.
are. Okay, Mahenda, you're representing Tanzania, and
Yeah.
so as also a neighbor for Uganda, what are your reflections and responses to this presentation?
Oh, although I missed the presentation, I joined lately. And I cannot say much on that because the topic already presented and then I was not in. So I cannot say anything there.
Okay, all right. So thank you, and glad to have you on. Interested in other reflections for people who may not have spoken. Isaac, I can see you. Isaac, who's also in Kenya. Welcome, Isaac. Would you like to make a quick comment on how this presentation from Hellen and Robert has landed with you? You're muted. You're muted, so you're. All right, so hard to get you off of mute. We can't hear you.
Well, let me do it. He has to unmute himself.
Yeah, you can. It's not finding the mute button is down in the lower left-hand corner. I think he's on cell phone, so it's maybe difficult.
Isaac, you might try on the upper, actually, left of your phone. You might find it there.
Is it, if he's on cell phone, where is it? On the upper?
On the upper left on the cell phone.
Upper left in the cell phone. All right. So let's continue. Other thoughts. Oh, there you go. Isaac. Okay, we still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for everybody who is present now in the meeting. I totally agree with Robert from Uganda and the fellow. The climatical change has put a very great impact on women. In fact, here in the coastal region, women are the mostly suffering from this impact. So we have been thinking on how we can help them, but we haven't have the way forward to do this with them. But I know we are with you, and we will share ideas and see the way forward. Thank you very much.
Great, Isaac, thank you. Interested in other initial comments? Kathleen, what stands out for you? I know you had much work in this here as well, but
Good morning, everyone. Good evening to my Ugandan friends, Hellen and Robert, especially. Mama Cat to you guys. It's very nice to see you. You gave a wonderful presentation, and I would encourage everybody on the screen to hang in here with the commitment that this group has. I really liked talking with you. I know about maybe a half of you on the screen that I've met, and did some work with Hellen and Robert about 3 years ago at Rape Hurts in Uganda. They are very dedicated, very brave people. They've gone through an awful lot all along the way, but especially the past 3 years with COVID and many, many struggles with food, with coping with children and women who have been raped and who are don't have sufficient food. Anyway, they're doing remarkable work, working together and supporting each other and some of the other staff at Rape Hurt. Very dedicated group of people. So it's wonderful to see you. Nice presentation. And hopefully I'll see you again, not too much longer, I hope.
Thank you, Kathleen. Richard, you also represent Uganda. And so I'm interested in your reflection on your countrymen in terms of this presentation. Are you there, Richard? See your picture, but I don't know whether you're hearing me.
Hello.
Hello, there you are.
Yes. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
I would like to join my voice to the earlier speakers to appreciate Hellen and Robert for the job well done. For the man who gets out of the crowd to help his fellow kinsmen, that's a noble job, especially in the big world of the suffering. Thank you very much, Hellen and Robert.
Thank you, Richard. Inamal Hassan from India. Interested in your comments, if you have, from this presentation from across the globe, and how this has struck you. And so this is an opportunity for all of us on the screen to have a quick reflection. And I know some have come in late, but if there are thoughts, and I just say this to Robert and Hellen, we're recording this, and the presentation, I think, is so significant that we need to make this available for people who missed it, and also particularly your slides, your presentation, your written presentation is very powerful. I want to read those again because it was, again, as Nancy or someone has said, it's just so well organized and so clear, and such a good connection between climate and what's happening with women and what's happening in Uganda and the several different fronts in terms of flooding and drought, et cetera. Other comments, initial comments? Allison, it's good to see you. Glad you're joining us. I know that you came in late, but I don't know if you've had any thoughts yourself.
Well, no, thank you. And yes, I did come in late, but I did capture some of the conversation. I was also listening while Philip had it on. So I do have some thoughts. First of all, thank you. These were excellent presentations. And I too have a very strong and keen interest in the role and the impacts of climate change on women and the role of policy. And I'm not just thinking about, India or Uganda or Congo. I'm actually thinking across the world. I think that maybe the problems, as we heard today, or the challenges are more amplified right now because of what you all have shared, but I can guarantee you that they translate even here in the US and in Europe in nuanced ways, but the translation is still there and it's very real and the impact is there. And so a question I have is, how do we find a way to come together and do more of this sharing, but also more of this collective problem solving, because the problems and challenges you all shared definitely are here, again, in a nuanced way.
Such a powerful connection. I see Wakagira, your hand. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to add to all the appreciation that has been given to Hellen and Robert for the presentation. And really, it speaks volumes, like has been said by others, even for other developing low to middle income places where, like, for example, I'm from Kenya, but I've also had the very special privilege of being in Liberia for a while. and just seeing really a repeat of what Helen and Robert were talking about, speaking with very young children as young as 6, 7, 8, who come and share their stories of how they've been raped, how their mothers have left to be with men who can provide and left their dads. And so the child is just left very vulnerable, swinging between parents, but also seeing the girl child selling their bodies so that they can sustain themselves and keep themselves through school, and how it ends up with so many unwanted pregnancies that it becomes almost part of the culture, that a young woman will end up being a mother at a very early high school age or even end of primary school, and eventually it becomes almost like a common second nature. You want to prove that you can that you're fertile by that age. So it's just the repercussions. And I know that these are mostly, they're made worse by climate change, even though they're also connected to, like someone said, the patriarchal communities. But also for me, it's thinking about how to bring in both the boy child and the girl child in this conversation together, because then the boys will support the girls. Because thinking if we focus on the girls, then the question may end up being in a few years, how can we empower the boy? So finding a middle ground to work that out collectively for me.
Thank you, Akira. Yes, appreciate it. I'm going to open the floor to open dialogue at this point. So questions, observations, thoughts. This is thank you for this sharing, this brief sharing from each and your reflections. This is a very powerful subject in so many different levels, but the floor is open. So just give me a hand raised or wave at me, and let's keep the dialogue going in the fashion of listening and finding what is our shared meaning. Getri, nice to hear from you from Kenya.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Getri from western part of Kenya, and I think I'm very much happy the discussion on climate change. Not just because it's a topic to be talked, but it's a life people have to live. Right now, where we are in I'll say in an intensive care unit as a world. This is just not Kenya or Uganda. When you look at the issues of global warming and the changes in weather patterns and how life is just happening for everybody. And the people, like today's discussion, mostly are women who undergo through very difficult time. It's not because they're given responsibility to deal with it at all, but because they feel they have a role to make a world a better place for their children. And so their children include the sons and daughters of the soil where they are. And just looking at the impact of women on climate change, if we want to make a difference, we have to start with that woman. Reasons being, the impact the woman will create will not just be for women, but for the community. In Western Kenya, traditionally, we believe a woman is the neck of the family. The man is the head, the woman is a neck. But then you find when you get to a home, if there is any kind of a mess in a home, visitors come and they say, this home has no stable woman. And so a woman has to maintain the home. And this includes making sure that you're fending for your animals, you're taking care of your children, you're taking care of the farm, and making sure that things are happening. And when we find there's a crisis in weather pattern, like for example, in Kenya this time, we did not have much rains until when it was actually harvesting time. Then we have, like in Western Kenya, we have started seeing a lot of rain. And so this puts up people on how do they provide for their family, given with the challenges that are happening. And so I really appreciate this topic being discussed, because for me, as a friend talked, we do not just see Kenya or Uganda, we see the world. How the world has developed world is impacting what's happening in the different countries right now. And this is something that is a topic that can continue being discussed because we see our daughters and sons coming up. How do I train my 5-year-old on importance of climate change? Because then if I understand what climate change is, it means my child will be able to elaborately explain to the growing generation how to protect the world.
Thank you, Gertrude. Yeah. And the comment has been raised, I think, certainly by Allison, that this is not just a Uganda issue, it is a global issue. And how we see so many reflections, even in our own culture here in the US, where there's so many connections, relations to the paternal society and how that is affected and how that might be affecting. It is a great reflection for us to examine how is this concern about the inequality, gender inequality affecting our own response to climate change. Please raise your hand and Robert. Yes.
Yes, hello everyone once again. I think we all have an agreement that although climate change affects everyone, it affects women more. And we should also know that characters and behaviors of most children come from their woman, most mothers, because they spend more time with us when we are still young than our own fathers. So by empowering a woman to respond to climate change, you are empowering a nation. I remember we talked about something to do with the education. Many people are educated, but they are not informed about climate change. They are not informed about sexual and gender-based violence, how it is affecting their communities. So basically, the education systems we have are for employment. They're not for sustainable development. So one of our initiatives and something we are working on with Hellen, we want to lobby government support to have a subject about climate within schools, climate and environment. In our education system, it is not there. And remember, this climate that we are in now, after a few years, it is going to be worse than it is now. So if you empower a child in the education system, they will value the topic at hand. Because current youth and children focus more on social media than critical issues of the world. It is only a few who really understand what is really going on. So I think as we work hand in hand, my colleagues in equatorial regions and whatever, we need to spread this message and also inform our authorities and governments to embed this into the education system. Currently, Uganda has gender-related topics in its education system. It could equally put something to do with climate. Yes, that is my submission.
Thank you, Robert. Philip, I see your hand raised.
Philip has his hand.
Yes, and thank you, Robert. I think, yes, it's completely true. We don't quite know how it's going to be in the future. We don't even know what actually is caused concretely by climate change and what factors come together, because climate change means that everything becomes less predictable. And I would think that this means that we can't just, as we so frequently do, think as the solutions to these problems, these little solutions here, little solutions there, but we need to strengthen whatever system we have. We need to specifically strengthen the input of all groups within the community. So that makes me always think that climate change actually needs to mean that we need to strengthen democracy itself. Because oftentimes people seem to say, no, we need to have governments that can react more quickly. There's a seduction to say, no, we need just strong government that solves this. But as we are seeing by this discussion, it's especially populations that are vulnerable that actually may have solutions of how to fix their problem. And we can only enable all of those if democracy itself is strengthened. So the two are irretrievably tied together.
Indeed. Wow. The issue of democracy, and it's I'm just so struck by this conversation from around the world, how the common theme, the shared meaning is showing up for us, is it not? And this is the nature and the promise and the benefit of dialogue, is the ability to commune in this fashion together and begin to recognize how much we are alike versus dissimilar, and how much we are facing the same challenges, and how the solutions may be coming from a collective consciousness like this. Other hands, David. David Allard, you're muted.
Yeah. So I can't stress highly enough how important just basic conversation is. I know we all would think that we'd like to be doing something about it, but I want to remind people that having these kinds of conversations and expanding them is doing something. You know, that as individuals, or even as our small groups, we tend to be isolated, and we focus on the problems that we know with the solutions we might know, but that without extended conversation and the emotion that goes with these conversations, we get stuck on our own little boxes. I have shared with John and Linda the thought that, you know, in the United States right now, I mean, we're having climate disaster after climate disaster. We've got floods in Kentucky. We've got water systems out in Jackson. We've got 116 degrees in Sacramento. We've got fires in Northern California. We've got floods. We've got drought. We've got livestock dying. We've got this happening all over the United States right now. But what doesn't happen is right now, the only way that gets communicated is through our media, through little 2-minute segments where they show you water, or they show you a dead cow, or whatever, or a quote from the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. I just continue to imagine what would happen if we had people from each of those places directly impacted by climate change and experiencing trauma because of climate change, just talking to each other without the mediation of North Americans, without the mediation of our media. And when I think of what is happening among equatorial peoples, this is the same thing. That is, we multiply our effectiveness to the degree that we're able to listen to each other well. Now, you need to know, if you know my history at all, I'm a doer, okay? People know me as a doer. I get things done. I understand that. I understand products. I ran a business. I understand all of that. Conversation is going to be the key in trying to find answers to our collective problems.
Indeed, David, it is. And again, this is the intent of dialogue, and why we've connected dialogue to the issues of climate change is how do we share these ideas, but also reflect on what it means to us? How does our curiosity then bring us back to a broader consciousness? And so we're not just staying in our own zone, if you will. But Robert and Hellen, you have stimulated our thinking deeply today. Hellen, I'm be very interested if you have other reflections on just what you're hearing from other members here. And we were, again, so impressed with your articulation and clarity.
Thank you so much, John. First and foremost, I am so humbled by the reactions that we've gotten from our comrades here. with the same dream. And we are really humbled that you appreciated our presentation. First and foremost, I wanted to make some, there is a point where Chirega, sorry, I just need to pronounce it well, sorry. There is one of our sister from Kenya, Wachigera. Thank you so much. She mentioned that we should not leave out the boy child. That is a very good point. And actually, one of our focus here in Rep Hearts Foundation, we really do inclusiveness, regardless working with women and children, so girls, men are also at the forefront. Because if you want a better place with no violence, you have to educate a boy about gender-based violence, because we were taught, men were taught women being a property. So how can you break that ice? By not telling women what to do only, but also telling men how to behave. So even if it is concerning the, hello? Am I visible? Am I heard?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, oh yes. So if you want to make a better tomorrow, you have to make sure that you include men as you're talking about women's rights, because they have to know, they want to know if they're in the background. So even if it's concerning environment, that is why we mentioned our key point with Robert was inclusiveness of women, because you find that women are left out. When they are planting trees, it's the men who harvest. We've never seen, it's for example, fishing. Imagine if a woman was sent to fish or they were taught how to fish. I don't think a woman who is a mother would fish a young fish. They'll go for the big one because it's mature, because the mother has that lovely, lovely attachment to a child. I don't say men don't, they do, but some men go extreme of pretending not to know what is around. So thank you so much for your point, my sister from Kenya. And then I'm not sure who else mentioned about the education in Africa for the women. Yes, it is there. We have the UP universal primary education. We have USE, universal secondary education. But these schools, first and foremost, the teachers are never in school. This is where they offer free education for the mothers that cannot take their children to school. First and foremost, the teachers are never in school. So children are actually left just half-baked. So they are left uneducated at all, almost. And secondly, they drop out by the age of 13, 14, the girl is no longer going to school. First, now, for example, with the hit of COVID that just happened 2 years, between 2021 and 2022, and even today, countries like Uganda had really worked on to end child pregnancy and all that. As I speak today, the number of pregnancies we receive here at Rep Hearts, they are overwhelming, very, very overwhelming. So you find that education is not yet impacting anything. Very few people. You have to have, first of all, a very supportive family. It's not the government. It's mostly the family that has supported you, or someone who appreciates you because of your performance at school. So what am I trying to say? That education in Africa, more so in Uganda here, it is still lacking. And it is, as Robert said, it is more of employment and not job creation, it's job seeking. And that is why you find many people unemployed. Even the educated one who can fragment the land and divide it into portions, because they have, you have a family of 10 members. And now the land you have is just an acre. So they have to partition it and drain it to zero. So honestly, I don't want really to speak so much, but a lot needs to be done. Thank you so much.
Hellen, your words are so powerful, and I'm so glad we're recording this and we're getting the transcript as well. But do not apologize for speaking so much. You brought so much to us and stimulated so many thoughts. So the floor is still open for other reflections and questions. You may have questions for Robert and Hellen at this point in terms of what Rape Hurts is doing, and I was really struck, Hellen, by your presentation. So what the initiatives that Rape Hurts has initiated, and small scale to begin with, but I mean it's such a stimulus both to the country and to us who are listening to this in terms of what we can do. So kudos on that, on all of that. Other comments, Nancy, Linda.
I guess I'm still wondering, am I on mute? No. I guess I'm still wondering, because it's the same in the US. I mean, I think our educational system is better by far, but I'm still curious how we can move around our current media system, move around our educational system and get more information on climate. And maybe what you said, David, I really appreciate is it is through conversation like this that we start to educate ourselves in terms of what's really going on, because we don't get it. We really don't get it from the government media controlled sources, and we're not really getting it enough in our school systems. We don't even teach government in our school systems in the US. I don't know if you do in Uganda or other places in the equatorial areas, but we don't even ourselves get any education now on how our government works, which I think is because, you know, the people who are controlling fossil fuel production, they don't want us to be smart. They don't want us to know what's really going on. So I'm just curious how we, through our own conversational channels, can start with maybe small steps, small experiments to help educate ourselves and then spread that education across countries, etc., so that we can make a difference. Just a thought.
Anna. Anna, you're muted.
Yes, I'm unmuted now. I was struck by something that was said about education. It's education for jobs, for work, but it's not life skills. We need to learn life skills, and our education is geared towards production, capitalism. And it's really a crisis now where we need the skills to look after the land that we're in. Wherever we live, we have the same problems. And our education actually has to adjust. Work is important, but actually caring for the land that we live on, so we don't leave our land. In fact, there's quite a movement to return and work on regeneration of land. And I think those are the skills we need these days: how to be good farmers, how to nurture the land that we live on, because with huge populations, that means huge production is needed. And we've seen how dependent we are in the most unexpected ways. For instance, Ukraine being invaded altered the way the grain that was shipped. I think there is some shipment of grain, but we're sort of in many ways dependent on each other at a commercial level, a food level. But we have to be more in tune with the land that we live in and be educated for that.
Indeed, thank you.
I think Rocky would like to say something.
Oh, I see a hand up, but I don't see a face. There's Rocky. Rocky, go ahead. Maybe Linda will turn the camera toward you.
I'm trying.
Well, no, there's plenty. I just want to quickly say thank you, Anna. The point you made is so important. Maybe this morning someone could share with us how the tree planting project was done.
Yes, who actually got that started? And
Hellen and Robert in Uganda, the replanting project.
Okay, thank you so much. Kindly, I just want to know the question again.
How did the tree planting project get started?
First of all, there is something like leasing of the land by the government. So the government can lease you a land for 99 years, and you keep paying ground rent. That is around 200. That is around 25,000 Uganda shillings. So we leased out a land, and we started using it basically for tree planting and vegetable growing. Because first of all, we have different schools that we go to that are struggling to feed the children. Then we have a nearby school. So yeah, that is how we started. And then also we have family friends that have leased out, that have given us land for use. We get such offers so often, especially in the communities that we go into sensitizing. They want to give us their land for use, not permanently, but just for anything that is developmental. Yes, so that is how we've acquired land, and we went on planting trees, both indigenous and pine, acacia, and also eucalyptus. Yes, so that is how we started. And we started that journey 2016.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great. Rocky, you still got your hand up, but we're seeing a hand off screen. I don't know whether you had a follow-up comment.
Just a quick follow-up question, since we're on this topic, then how was the fruit tree project done?
On the fruit tree.
When did we start the fruit tree plantation?
Yeah.
Yes. Still, we have gardens. We have different gardens that we do. We are using as Red Parts Foundation. So in those gardens, we make sure there are fruits. Either we put them on the boundaries of the plot or the acre that we are using, or when we go to schools or training. Let me say we have a training about sexual gender-based violence. We go to the community. We go with fruits, for example, avocado, mangoes, jackfruit, and we plant there. And we give the community members an obligation to make sure that they take care of them. And if you are able to keep that tree to grow into a proper tree, you are awarded. So we do give awards at the end of the day. Yes, because if you do not put an implementation program, someone won't care. But when you tell them, when you come, because we know how our people are struggling, it's not a manipulative character, but what we do, we tell them, if we find someone, the tree that we planted in this place, we are going to give you 5 kilograms of sugar, we're going to give real rice, we're going to do this, or we're going to offer some let me say, scholastic materials to your children. And they really take it as an initiative to make sure that these trees grow. It's an effort that was made.
That's nice.
Yes, thank you.
By the way, I don't know whether I'm thank you, Helen. I draw your attention to the chat. The chat is a lot of very powerful comments and extensive comments being made in the chat. Make sure to save the chat. There's 3 little buttons down in the lower right-hand corner. You can save the chat at the end. We'll save it and send it out to you if you'd like. But there's some powerful comments being made that are not being voiced, but we need to include those. Wakagera, you just made an observation, and I saw your hand up. Do you did you want to make a comment? I saw your hand up, and then David and Robert. Yes? No? Okay, David, over to you.
Helen's comment about, oh, sorry.
David?
John, who do you want?
You, David Albert.
Okay. Helen's comment was so important. Over the last 47 years, I cannot tell you how many tree plantation camps I have been part of which have failed. And the main reason they have failed is there's no maintenance program, there's no program of sustainability, there's no program of accountability. And often it will be Westerners from North America or even from Europe come with a bunch of money and they say, and they organize a group, and they just come plant trees. They plant trees and a year or two later, they're gone. Rahul can probably testify to this as well. The sustainable, and I have many funny stories that I'm not going to tell now, but sustainability for such efforts is absolutely critical. Second thing I wanted to add is Friendly Water has been promoting, and Hellen has been part of a program of something called permagardens. Women do work in the fields, but in fact, if you have a place where you get puddles, when in the rainy season, you can build the kind of garden that can produce food for you all year round right next to your house. When we have a method of doing that, it's called permagardens. We've trained people to do that. We have a lot of work that's actually gone on in Uganda, some in other places, but especially in Uganda, Tanzania as well. You know, because with the changing climate, we need not only to find ways to store drinking water, but ways to store water underground so that we can grow food all year round. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Nancy.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on going back to the discussion about education, beginning with conversation, and students throughout the history. It is students in the world who have often led the revolutions and the transformations. And when I mentioned the courses we're putting together here and wanting to do it in partnership with this conversation, with the equatorial voices, building relationships, friendships, and conversation first. And out of that, we're identifying not only knowledge about climate change itself, but about the human processes that bring people together and empower them, and having young people across the world have far more in common with each other these days than any has with their own country. And they understand the problems, and when they can help each other appreciate the solutions and be spreading that, first of all, it keeps them from the despair that is killing young people. And secondly, it empowers them to take the kind of leadership that is needed. And that is to elicit, enable, and empower our higher abilities is really the purpose of, quote, higher education. So this conversation here is an opportunity for us to together build the kind of learning experiences and content with the young, creating much of it, because none of us has the answers. This isn't a top-down elders telling youngers how to do it. It's rather us coming together in making sense out of the situation we're in together. And I am so grateful to all of you for actually showing a way to do this here.
Indeed, it's worth noting, and David Albert has mentioned this, that the members of the Equatorial Voices collective that we have is of a younger generation, and in some cases, Robert, I think you said you're 28. Is that right? Others was your age is 28. So and a number of them are younger. Yes, Robert, and you had your hand up as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, a few days ago, I just made 29. I wanted to add something about what Hellen had pointed out and our fruit tree project. Of late, we've realized, especially rural communities, want something that has multiple values. With this element of food insecurity, with the element of climate change, our surveys on ground have shown that if you promote fruit tree growing in particular, you're having two key issues you are tackling. One is climate. Second one is food insecurity. We are having a lot of issues with the malnutrition. There are a lot of success stories that we can share with people who want to know more about repats, of people testifying, feeding on barely fruits when the worst situations come by. So when we are looking at afforestation, we've had challenges in past where a person says, besides planting tree, how am I benefiting? So the fruit tree project has answered some of these issues that we are looking forward. We've been having challenges, and as earlier Hellen had pointed out, we've also been giving awards and some small things to keep it going. It is helping me to help you, an exchange. And as we on the climate dialogue, we should also understand education is important. When climate as a subject is included, because you can be literate, but when you are ignorant. Then the other thing that is also important to note, currently, we as the youth and a lot of young generation, we should look at using the opportunity of social media to pass on this information. Most of the youth and children don't have time for reading books, don't have time for key discussions. But if you have social media influencers, if you are using these social media platforms to pass on the information, gradually, this message is passed on. As earlier David had pointed out, these discussions are equally important before you embark on several practical solutions. They share a lot, they build the network on which we can build this kind of change that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Let me just include others who may not have had and offer that. And let's see, I think Priyanka from India, we haven't heard from you. And Kathleen, I do see your hand up, but I just want to make sure that we have not missed some voices that have been on and listening and may not have been part of our original group. But Priyanka, are you there? From India?
Yes, sir, I'm there. Hello.
Would you like to share your video as well?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Thank you.
Am I audible?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can completely relate with the topic that climate change has drastic impact on the world. In India, I'm belonging from the central India, so I can relate that the weather condition is completely changing. Like the summer is extremely hotter, and in the rainy season, there are floods and anything. Due to this, the agriculture also impact, and the worst impact of this on the women and the children. I can see that the women are due to the drought condition, women can travel to the long distance to fetch water. So, and due to this, the young women not able to attend the school. So these are the impact. And one of the member have seen that we can combat this effect by planting the tree. So I can in the in the country like India, there are shortage of land. So we can say that one of the solution for planting the tree. So we can plant the tree on vertical forest can be one of the solution, I think. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Kathleen.
Yes, one of the concerns I have about the tree planting issue is that because water is so scarce in Uganda. I'm on the board for Friendly Water for the World, so making biosand filters and the water catchment areas, be able to catch water off roofs and so on during the monsoon season and be able to store it and use it later. That's one of the most critically important things, in my view, that's going on in Uganda these days, is those water catchment tanks. And I'm wondering about the expectation for sustainability in these areas where there's such drought and such a scarcity of water. I don't know how we can expect someone to water a plant when they don't have sufficient drinking water or water to cook with. I'd like to hear a little bit from Helen and Robert maybe about how that's being handled, because I can see how things get planted and then just don't get maintained, not because of disinterest, but because of inability.
So it's how the plants get watered. And I'm, let me just interject, I'm conscious of our time, and we're going to move quickly after a couple of more comments into our reflections, because that will close out. We got about a half an hour left. But Helen or Robert, did you have a response to Kathleen in terms of her question?
Okay, about maintenance of these projects. Actually, any project is as important as its M&E, monitoring and evaluation. And what David pointed out, accountability. For us, when we are handling some of these projects, we ensure we are working with committed and people who are interested with whatever project we are putting on ground. Because if you don't ensure that, you are bound to lose out. Secondly, we've put accountability as a measure. For instance, last week we were in some 2 to 3 schools whereby we planted trees. We pass on this information about sexual and gender-based violence. And as our signature move, we leave behind only 10 trees per school. But we are doing follow-up. Are they being watered? By who? And we put up someone, our contact person on the ground. Recently, under that project, we didn't share the picture that we are having in one of the districts in Kamuli for safe and clean drinking water, where we've distributed safe and clean drinking water through taps and security lights. We found that we're having challenges with people vandalizing this property. Our program, we had to put someone on ground to ensure that this work has to be done. People have to be reminded regularly, and you have to do follow up. It is not an easy thing, honestly. It is something related to sacrifice. So one of our major areas that we are focusing on as REPATs to ensure there is a clear monitoring and evaluation system for any project or an activity that we put up. Even in our case management systems, we've had survivors we've saved, but if you don't closely monitor their recovery mentally, they fall short and they go back to the mental state that traumatized them. So usually that's how we are working with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So I'm conscious again of time. Raul, you'll be the last comment, and then we'll move into reflections. And Philip, I saw your hand up, but you took your hand down, so I assume you're all right. Go ahead, Raul.
So there are 3-4 questions that arise in my mind. In chat, I can see fairies and all philosophers. So I was in deep thinking of how Foucault is related to these issues and how Gramsci will think like that. So all this come to sudden. But the most important is how power dynamics is working in Uganda. That's what I'm thinking. And the role of government, like as Helen said, her organization is working really well. But what are the implications that government is doing to combating climate change in Uganda? Then I see starvation. So what the policymakers were doing at the same time, if the marginalized community is affecting with the climate change. So then again, water safety and security, it's a global problem. And I might think that planting trees might be a solution, not the entire say whole solution for the climate change. Because when as somebody mentioned, like the trees whichever we planting, it's also really matters, because few trees are releasing CO2s. As I read in few reports. So in India, mass gatherings and mass campaigns were happening over the tree plantation, but at the end of the year, you won't see a single tree. Those who planted and say proudly that we make that tree survive for the longer period of time. And another thing is any social leader or any social movement has been taken up this issue to the national question in Uganda. So I find if it is their answers to Robert and Hellen, so it might be helpful for me to relate with my geographical locations. But anyways, I again say issues are the same, and the consequences are facing like the similar to each other. So yeah, thank you.
So true. How much we are similar versus being dissimilar and spread out around the world. So we're going to move into reflections at this point. Thank you all for, number one, thank Hellen and Robert for the amazing presentation, but for all of the comments and the reflections that have added to that. We're going to take about 60 seconds or less for everyone who would like to speak in terms of reflection. What has stood out for you? What have you taken away from this? I mean, I will just say that this has been focused on gender and climate change, and that was the basic theme, and how important and how challenging the issue of women's inclusiveness in Uganda is, and around the world for that matter. I've been happy to be part of creating a school in Narok, Kenya, for Maasai girls only in residential care, such that they can learn without being married off or tending cattle. And the education being such a critical element. I hear that from you, Hellen, education being such a critical element. In any event, I'm so pleased and honored to be part of this. So let me turn it over. Who else? Quick check out, if you will, reflection. And I'm interested, Allison, your reflections. You have such a global view of the issues for women around the world as well. So wonder if you have a quick reflection.
Well, my only reflection is that I really appreciated this conversation, and I'm glad that women were integrated into the conversation, because as our colleagues from various countries in Africa have already shared, women really are the backbone of a culture and society. You know, there's a saying among the Cheyenne Native Americans that a nation is not conquered until the hearts of its women are on the ground, and then it is done, it is finished. And that is really important, because as was stated, this is the root and the heart. So if we're working on climate change and working on climate justice, then we have to be working on gender justice issues. And so I was pleased to hear that, and tying that into education is so important. I think one thing I would add as regards educating ourselves and educating others is experiential learning is so important. I think having dialogue is definitely a part of that process, and it should be integrated with being out in the community, in the field, in the places that are being impacted. I think that's really powerful. So I just wanted to put that out there as something that we should all be striving for. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you for being part of this. Others in terms of your reflection, Linda. Linda, can you?
Yeah, I had to get off mute. I think what I'm going to take away is the importance of these projects, having motivation for people to follow through with them, and also as a way of building community, and also as a way of educating. In other words, if we have projects that are not only helping to feed people, but bringing people together and educating people. That seems to be something that's really important. And it doesn't take government necessarily to do that, although it would be nice if government were behind it. So I'm going to take that away. And also I like the idea of educating boys if we want to make a major culture shift so that women are not exploited, that boys start to learn the importance of equality right from the get-go in the educational system. I'd say that that's something I'll take away. So thank you so much, Robert and Helen. I really enjoyed the presentation. I now understand a little bit more about what's going on in Uganda, especially with respect to women. So thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Isaac from Kenya, what reflections from your colleagues in Uganda and others who've spoken? Can you unmute? Oh, we're going through that again to get you unmuted. We can't hear you. I'm sure you're adding important thoughts. You're muted, Isaac.
Oops.
In any event, let me while you're finding the unmute, let me call on Anna. Anna, your thoughts in terms of you can unmute. Yeah, you got it.
I'm very encouraged. I think it's hearing each other and realizing how many of the same problems we share, just talking about it and what we might be able to do at what might be called grassroots level, but communication too. It gives me a sense of hope because sometimes the problems seem so overwhelming. So I might start a morning like this feeling, we face such huge problems. And then during a session like this, hearing everyone coming together, it gives me hope. I find it inspiring. And I'm hoping that that's what dialogues, people talking together and sharing their experience. I'm hoping that's what will happen for all of us.
Thank you, Anna. I'm just going to call on others. Wakagira.
Yes, Anna, in face of these problems.
Wakagira, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear. Could you please repeat again? Sorry.
Well, we're just what are you taking away from this? You've contributed considerably to this conversation, particularly in the chat, and I encourage people to go back and take a look at the chat, save the chat. But what are you taking away from this in a short comment?
I think really for me it's feeling a lot of encouragement to see that people do care across the board. And if we can continue that kind of care, these conversations, I think enough people have talked about the power of conversation. We may not be able to travel to all these places to see for ourselves, but through the eyes of those people who are there, sharing the successes, sharing the pain, sharing the sorrow. And I keep wanting to say, as David said, which is really profound for me, we didn't choose to be born anywhere. We just found ourselves. And so putting ourselves in the shoes of those others that may have need and working together. And ultimately, we all have different needs to be met. So it's just sharing and collaborating, and we can come out with a happier, or we can end our lives happier knowing that we did the best we could. And thank you so much for the presentations and for those who put this gathering together.
It's great. Wakagira, where are you located again? Where are you? You in Uganda, Kenya?
No, I'm from Kenya. Right
Kenya.
now, I am very close to Santa Cruz, very close to Nancy, Gigi, who's the one who connected me to this conversation.
Yeah, good. Well, and your comment about the communication around the world and how we're connecting. It's worth taking a look at the screen and just seeing how many different countries are represented here in this group, in this conversation, and how the shared meaning is surfacing in terms of no matter where we are, no matter where we've been born. These are issues that are common. And Rocky, you did have your hand up. What quick reflection from you?
Reflection on today's work and presentations, we could see the breadth of problems, yet Robert and Hellen have been able to make the effort to put together social organizations. And I look forward to later hearing how they were able to envision the work that they do, and now how they were able to carry out and put together the organizations and the ideas that they put together. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky. Great to have you on as well. Nancy, what reflections from you? Nancy Clark. You're muted, Nancy.
I'm so encouraged by what I'm experiencing as the power of conversation to create the kind of collaboration that truly empowers us and also connects us so that we actually care about each other, trust each other, and can together come up with extraordinary solutions. I am more hopeful this morning than I have felt in a very long time. So thank you for your presentations and everyone for your comments and for this deep sense of connection and camaraderie. And David, you're so right about conversation, and John and Linda, you're so right about creating this kind of process for us. And I know we'll build, I already am connecting with people offline and getting to know each other and starting to figure out what are the things we can do together.
Thank you, Nancy. Getri from Kenya. Can you hear me? Thank you for your contribution.
Yes, I can hear you.
What reflection from this time together?
I think I appreciate the fact that we are all gathered from different parts and we are able to share in details. It makes us feel a touch of what is going on, like the Ugandan discussion. I really want to appreciate Hellen and Robert because it makes, I felt like I'm part of that group as they move on. And in fact, the more points I've been looking at when I was writing down are key aspects on I as a woman, what difference am I making for the generation to come? And I think to me it's a challenge. It's just not about the normal routine, but it's about looking out for that girl child who also needs to learn more. And so I appreciate this discussion and I wish we continue discussing more because once we speak, solutions come up from our thinking. And that's how best we can solve the world's problem.
That's so true. It's exactly right. And that's what our intent is, Getri. And these conversations will continue. This is the second of a number of presentations from Equatorial Voices. And so we will let you know the next ones. Richard, are you still there, interested in your reflections on what these conversations have meant? Richard, are you still there?
I don't think Richard's here.
There you are. Yeah.
Yes, I'm there.
I'm sorry.
It is quite encouraging to hear from each one of you, and then the stories shared by Hellen and Robert and the work they're doing has encouraged each one of us, I believe. And I hope that along the way, we shall together devise solutions on how we can tackle the problems in our respective communities. But seeing each one of you from various countries across the world is a big encouragement.
Indeed. Powerful word, community, because what this group has created, even just today, is a community. We have community in this setting in terms of how we're relating, and it's not where we are, it's who we are now together. Philip, comments, your final reflections, because I know you had your hand up.
Well, I just want to echo the statement of hope that was made already by Anna and Nancy. I mean, this is typically why older people appreciate talking to younger people. So I appreciate that we have this opportunity here to see that, contrary to what we always hear, the future is not necessarily going to be worse. I mean, we have to always remind ourselves that actually we are living one of the best times that humans have ever lived. And that if we keep this positive energy and also translate this into actual real commitment and actions, that we'll be okay. And I've noticed with so many of my students now, a little bit Connie, that they are being told always that, you know, we should be depressed and it's a bad time and this is the last generation. This is simply not true. Yeah, but we need to really actively fight this, because I've seen that some young people have that energy, but many seem to be giving up. And we can't let this happen. And so this is why this is so important across all these countries. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. Isaac, I see you have unmuted. So what reflection on this conversation today? Well, we still can't hear you.
He is unmuted.
Isaac, wow, we still can't hear you even though you're unmuted.
Let's see. Thank you very much from friends from Uganda for the representation they have made today. Actually, it has shown us what is going on in Uganda and the importance of the trees, whereby they have talked about the planting of the fruit trees, which is benefiting twice, one on fruits and on the environmental conservation. So I appreciate this, and I appreciate the gathering. As we come up as a team like this way is when we put ideas together, and putting ideas together is when we find a solution for our own problem. Thank you very much.
You're so exactly right, Isaac. It's when we put our ideas together that we find solutions. That is very true. Raul, I know that you've made a lot of comments, but what is the one thing you're taking away from this? Give us a hope.
So I must insist, like, women empowerment is really important, as I can relate the Indian and Ugandan context in a similar fashion, because patriarchy works in both the societies. So Hellen and Robert is doing really wonderful job with their organization. And the most downtrodden is the marginalized and the women communities that impacts on climate change impacts on them. So and I feel this conversation, while both were sharing their perspectives and the presentation, all the contents that I can visualize myself what practices should bring from India to Uganda in terms of behavioral change, or in terms of policy making or fundraising for the program management, and all this came sudden in my mind, and that will lead me to connect more on these issues with Robert and Hellen. So that's my take. I am understanding the issues and delivering any practices from my country, and also receiving from Uganda also. So yeah.
Thank you, Raul, and thank you for your participation in helping to organize these voices, this series. David Albert, I know this is close to your heart. What do you think?
I'm looking around this table with all these incredible family members. I mean, each of you has a personal story that would, even putting aside program and ideas, just your personal stories that would make so much difference in people's lives. I was especially happy today to see Getry my friend Getry, who's one of the great community animators, I guess would be the best term of the world. Getry has a long history in peacemaking, and I shared in the chat a PDF of work that she has primarily been doing in Western Uganda, an extraordinary story around rainwater catchment systems. But she has done so much. But I could say that of just about everybody on this page. I am privileged and humbled simply to be included in this. And I thank you all so very much.
David, and the thanks go back to you. You're the reason that we're having this forum, because of your friendships around the world and what you've done and how they appreciate you and how you've included them. I want to have the final words to Hellen and Robert. Let me call on Hellen. How has our reflection in this dialogue after your presentation encouraged you or given you hope? Or what are your reflections, Hellen?
Thank you so much, John. Honestly speaking, they say it takes a village to raise a child. So in this same manner, it takes a village, it takes continents to get a solution that can solve the environmental issues. So I am so humbled to be part of this group, because I believe the village here is going to impact another village. And I have gotten also emphasis from all my comrades here that while we feel like we've been perfect, these questions are enlightening us to know more of what we can do. So it does not really mean Robert and Hellen have to do this. REPATS has to do this. It is a collective effort. So if we get information from here, we're going to put it into work and we're going to share it with another community. And the community here, it becomes a village working together. So honestly, for me, it is a takeaway. I have really appreciated this time. And I thank God that I've not missed any bit of it. Thank you so much, comrades. Bless you.
Hello, we can't
We
thank
hold
you
you in the light.
Can't thank you enough for your presentation, and we are community. And David, as David Bohm said, relationship is the heart of what we get it from dialogue, and we're building that. Robert, for the final comment.
Hello, thank you everyone for the opportunity to present what we are going through, what our people are going through. Thank you to John, Linda, David, and all people who have organized these dialogues. I think they help out in sharing knowledge. And also I learned a lot from the previous discussion about caste for Raul. I also look forward to learn more about the coming discussions. I just appreciate this listening we are going through, the communications, the questions we get, they always puzzle us and they help us know where are the gaps, how can we respond to this? Like today we've learned that education is really an important aspect in climate. So how can we build on that? Communication is key. How can we build an efficient communication if we have to create change? I just appreciate everyone. I'll be sharing the document soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Robert and Hellen, for starting this thinking off in terms of your this conversation about gender in climate change. I just want to say we're at the end of our time period. Thanks for staying. This is the essence of dialogue. The communication that we've had and the building of that community and relationships, which will continue. And this is just the second piece of a journey in terms of equatorial voices in climate change. We will let you know of the next one. Robert and Raul and your group, you're going to let us know who's next up on that. That will take place, Linda, October 20th, is it?
Let me tell you.
17th.
We're going to be having a training on October 6th, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and then we'll have another presentation.
Training.
October 27th.
October 27th. We'll get that information to you on that. As you may have seen in the note from Linda, we're also going to be having some additional trainings in dialogue. usually 2 weeks before the other presentations, a couple of hours, just a chance to get into some more depth on what is dialogue and how do we look at the various different components that make up the practice of dialogue.
The 7 to 9 that you mentioned, Linda, is
9.
that AM Pacific? So
AM Pacific, yeah. It'll be
AM Pacific, thank you.
we'll practice skills a little bit more, but we'll also be practicing dialogue. So we'll be able to even, go deeper, take deeper dives into some of the issues that have come up even here today. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's how we learn to dialogue, is through the practice. So I think once we get who's coming in terms of the next presenters, we'll send out a schedule through the end of the year. So it'll be clear what days we're doing what. And so really look forward to an ongoing conversation that keeps getting deeper and we keep developing our relationships further. Very exciting opportunity.
Indeed, and all of this group is still welcome back for the next presentations, and I think we'll move to Kenya next. Let me just ask Helen and Robert to please send to me or Linda your slides, and we'll make those available. I hope you're willing to share those. They were so rich, so much information in those. And for those of you who we don't have your email addresses, please put in the chat your email address so that we can also send that out to you. We'll send the chat out to you as well. This has been a very rich session. So Linda, other comments?
No, I think we can also probably send out the transcript. We'll be getting that. Eventually, if we can find someone who could give us some editing, we'll even be able to make the video recording available, but that's probably down the line because it's going to take a little bit of work to edit it down. But eventually, I think a lot of this will be able to be shared with a broader audience, which is wonderful. So we're really laying down some good tracks, I think, for future purposes. So thank you everyone so much for coming. This was very rich.
Indeed. Look forward to seeing you all at the next presentation. Thank you so much. Communication continue via email, so let us know your thoughts. But wishing you all the best blessings to all. Thank you so much, Robert and Helen. I don't want to stay on for a second.
Sure.
Robert, do you want to stay on for, whoops, we lost him. Robert, do you want to stay on for a second? He's gone. Goodbye all. Armstrong, we'll hear from you next time.
Yeah, I'm sorry you got on so late. We didn't get to hear from you. And Avalon, we didn't get to hear from you either. Are you there?
Yeah. Let's see, I think we lost Robert, but any event, we can just debrief. Avalon, I see you're still on, and sorry we didn't get you involved in this. I don't know whether you are currently a student of Rich or David.
I think David brought her in last time. I think she is a student.
Okay, so why don't you and I just connect by a phone connection, and we can.
I'll call you on my landline in just a minute.
Okay, all right. Goodbye all. Nice to see you. Thank you for your participation.